delivery indefinite quantity contract that was previously issued for professional utility management and financial consulting services. If you recall, after the PUC rate order on our 5-year rate plan, in 2020, they did require in the rate order the development of 7 analytical studies along with an updated rate application model, which was to be part of the comprehensive review and update that we submitted in 2021 for fiscal year 2022. In light of that workload, and also because we had, with the decision on the rate order, had an additional opportunity for refunding of our 2013 bonds, we issued the RFP for financial utility management and financial consulting services to help us accomplish all of those requirements for the PUC. That contract was awarded to the Ghilardi Rothstein Group, and Mr. Rothstein, along with some expert consultants in various areas, did accomplish all of the work necessary for those 7 analytical studies, and he managed the program to get that done within the short time frame that we had. You will also recall that the Public Utilities Commission did provide a separate regulatory order for the creation of a regulatory asset to cover the costs of the analytical studies and the work related to the comprehensive review and update. And that was issued at the same time the rate order was issued in 2020. And so the contract with Mr. Rothstein and GRG was issued, and task orders were issued for all the different work elements that needed to be conducted. But unfortunately, with the comprehensive review and update that was submitted and the PUC's amended scheduling order that came out after that, it's apparent that there is going to be additional effort required. And if they approve various components, such as the tax-exempt commercial paper program and the customer affordability program, both of which Mr. Rothstein was responsible for developing for us, we would need assistance in executing and implementing those programs. So we are, all the work orders that have been issued to date amount to about $980,000, which is right under the limit of my procurement authority. And we anticipate that we will need additional funding to carry us through the completion of the rate application and implementation of the alternative capital financing solutions that were identified. So we are seeking an amendment and authorization from the PUC for an additional $500,000 as a limit, and the additional work to be performed, since the scope is still relatively undefined. It would be conducted on a time and material basis not to exceed that $500,000. We don't anticipate we'll use all of it, but we don't want to have to come back multiple times for additional authorizations. We do anticipate that the comprehensive review and update will be completed with the PUC's proposed action on September 30th in accordance with the scheduling order. But the additional work for tax-exempt commercial paper implementation will run out through calendar year 2022, we believe. So we're seeking this amendment in order to cover the work that is necessary up until that time under the IDIQ contract. The source of funds will be, some of it can be funded by bond funds, and then the remainder under the working capital fund. And we'll follow the PUC accounting order for the regulatory asset appropriately.
Okay. Any question?
Just a question again about I'm fine with everything. The 1.5 million that, if it's approved on Tuesday, that it would grow to bond and regular operating fund. What's the breakdown on that? How much did you pull from bonds and how much did you? Well, you can tell us Tuesday.
The only thing that would be covered under bonds as a potential line item is the affordability program, because it was included in our 20-year master plan.
Okay.
But all of the other work is supposed to be covered under the regulatory asset and the working capital fund, if I'm not mistaken.
And you have plenty of cash to do that, yeah.
Okay,
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
okay. Any other questions, commissioners? Further questions? I have no questions. You know, this is something we need to do, and we've been working on this 5-year rate plan. You know, had some hiccups, all good. The PUC required more studies, which are all good. And, you know, it doesn't hurt to really make sure we get it right, because we have to get it right. So I don't have a problem with this. There are no questions? Miguel, you go through your report?
If we, Cam, can go to the management report, and I
Sure.
can give you a rundown. This will include
2
both
months.
for the months of May and June, since we didn't
Sure.
have a June meeting.
Sure.
To start, as of July 14th, we have updated the workforce availability report, and 97.2% of our workforce is healthy and reporting for duty. We have several that are out sick but not COVID-19 related, 1 in COVID-19 quarantine, 5 on military leave, and 1 on long-term disability. We have 95.3% of the workforce reporting for duty at the work site, and we have the remainder that are still working either part-time, working partly through teleworking and partly reporting for duty at the work site, and 6 people that are healthy and reporting for duty via telework. In terms of our vaccination, as of the 14th, we are about 78% vaccinated, 4% out of that 78% requiring 1 more shot, and then about 21% who have not received any shots and remain unvaccinated. So,
Any details on that? Break them out into religious and
we don't have that level of detail, but anecdotally, I guess, just in conversations with the program managers and division heads, we have a few that are fundamentally opposed to the vaccine, primarily on the basis of it not being, only having an emergency authorization. I don't know if we have any religious objections. Yeah. And I think a few medical, and I think the remainder are just not convinced or not motivated.
so what steps are you going to require for them to continue working?
So we have been actively encouraging everyone to be vaccinated. We conducted the virtual town hall meeting. We've encouraged participation in the various clinics that have been held both at our work sites and other sister agency work sites. We are currently planning 1 more incentive. We're trying to make a little competition for the business units that still have a high number of unvaccinated employees, and see if we can encourage them to do so by the end of the month, which is kind of coincides, at least get their first shot by the end of the month, which coincides with the closure of the mass vaccination clinics. So we're making those types of efforts, but other than that, there isn't much we think we can do.
Are you thinking of those employees that are not vaccinated, for example, they must continue to wear masks, and if they expect to go out, if they're not publicly related employees, meaning no contact, you can or recommend you ask them to wear a mask and a face shield in order to talk or deal with clients, or more importantly, their workmates. I live in this world, Miguel, so you better understand that you need to remind them that it's their safety first, then the rest of us. Because you cannot be held responsible when they get infected and it's not caused by their fellow employees. So you got to strongly encourage them by telling them, I'm sorry, you need a mask. Then if you want to go outside, you have to wear a shield to protect me from you. Because there's no other way to do it. Other than we're hoping that the governor mandates that you have to get this shot at some point, notwithstanding whether it's EUA, because we've already done our part of being safe for ourselves. Now we need them to say, hey, they can understand your concerns, but I mean, it's almost to the point where the shields, for example, here you go, thank you very much, you're gonna need a shield. I don't know what's gonna happen to you.
So we can take a look at what kind of options we might employ for that, for work restrictions for those who are vaccinated versus unvaccinated. I think whatever we do, we would have to do jointly with GPA since we share facilities, right?
Right.
So that's something that we can start looking at, and we'll have to incorporate, of course, any mandates that change from the governor. So we can get started on that and then present something to you after we've had a chance to talk with GPA about that.
Well, I know she's gonna require you to wear masks when you're still inside. So that,
With or without?
yeah, that's almost a given, but. I
As
think
far as
we-
if the practice can be changed for working outdoors, which is the majority of some of our
Yeah,
holdouts actually are
outside.
field
not
personnel.
inside.
Yeah, then we can.
Eventually they do come in, right?
Well, but
Can't
if
remain outside the whole time.
right, but if those that are unvaccinated have to remain wearing their masks outside, and those that are vaccinated
Exactly.
cannot or don't have to, then that might be somewhat. Could be. Yeah.
About $10,000 for a car.
No, I have a question.
Only if you don't.
Yeah, I have a question though. What happens when they close the vaccination clinics?
No, there's,
Or what?
you always have vaccines available.
Okay, free.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
Always free.
always
Okay.
be free.
No. I thought that at some
No.
point it stops and you have to pay.
They're gonna continue to have vaccine
Okay.
clinics and
Somewhere, just not the
somewhere,
big one.
somehow, right, it's just you're not.
Just
Okay.
not
I
the big
mean,
one.
there's always one you can ask them to come here.
Okay. I was just wondering. I didn't know. Well, I think one of the things you have to understand is, Miguel, those people, especially the ones who work in the field, I think especially if they're not vaccinated, they have to wear a mask because people will come up to them and say something, let's face it, they're out there. If somebody knows, hey, my water's out, and the crew's out there working, our people, their culture is they'll come right out and, hey, what's going on? How soon can you get this done? And if they don't wear a mask, they pose a risk to the ratepayers. So I think you need to tell them that might come to a point where you cannot work.
That's one of my questions. Are we making it a condition of employment, right? And I worry that creates a potential slippery slope for everybody, right? And the other piece of the puzzle is we have no guarantee that when Mrs. Cruz walks into Taylorville, whether she's vaccinated or not, and none of our rules require, I don't know what our current.
Well, right now, we require a
Customer
mask.
service is to wear a mask, but in
Yeah.
terms of vaccination, right? So,
Yeah.
but I did kind of like some of the discussion that if we said, you've got to wear a mask and a shield, I mean, for some people, they're going to go, never mind, give me the shot, right? But whatever the rule is, I just wonder to what limit, if any, we have when it's a, quote, condition of employment. If Simon's not wearing his mask and shield because he hasn't gotten a shot, can I be terminated? Can I be sent home? What exactly? Because we may run into a situation, humans are funny people, right? Where just Joe Cruz says, I ain't getting one, I don't care if I'm a member of the union or I'm whatever, and you can't tell me, enforce me to do it. And I just don't know where we are legally, but I'm not surprised. I heard today from an employee of GPA who surprised me that still is not vaccinated. And so we're just, you're warming us up and warn JB that the same conversation is probably going to happen on Thursday. Just that we collectively think about, what do we want to do and what happens if we run into employee X that says, I don't care, I ain't doing it.
So
What is our recourse, if any? And if there is a recourse, we have to tell employees, right? And then does it stand up in court?
Well, I'll say in the States, they had a hospital that did that. They multiple hospitals, they fired people. They gave them time, and unless you had
So can GPA or GWA fire an employee for not wearing a mask? We're gonna look at lawyers like you and ask
I
them.
mean, now, I think the context was the hospital one, these were nurses and doctors that.
Healthcare workers.
So they said, there's absolutely no way they can.
And that's a condition of employment.
And it was conditional.
We don't currently have that condition of employment.
No,
It's
we
all
do not.
voluntary at this
And,
point.
and our efforts to date have not been to make it mandatory, but it has been to make getting the information mandatory so that they can make an informed decision. So that part we have kind of pushed to make mandatory, but in terms of getting the vaccine, we have been strongly encouraging it. And we continue to do so, and we'll continue to do so. As far as any other position that we might take, I would be reluctant to take any other position without an appropriate legal analysis on that, which I don't think we have yet.
What happens if we give you a deadline, for example? Have all managers by August 15th, all other employees by
September
August
15th.
31st or whatever. Just to try to get them vaccinated. We're not making it mandatory, but it's just another push on our side, right? I mean, Graham, are we, notwithstanding that the governor has not mandated vaccines, can we mandate it as a policy of the CCU to say we want to keep all our employees safe and our ratepayers knowing that they come into the GPA in contact with GWA, they know they're safe on that basis, as opposed to, I mean, hospitals were different, right? We were the first hospital in Guam to mandate it, but we felt we owed
But you're
it
a
to-
privately owned business, and you
Correct.
can set your rules,
Yeah.
right?
But the question is, can we, as the CCU,
Government, yeah.
yeah.
So
not-
maybe Graham and Graham can research that for Thursday, because I mean, I have no problem with the whole approach. My question is, when employee X is the one employee, whether they're manager or janitor, saying, I ain't doing it,
Yeah.
what recourse do we have? I like the idea to get it by this date and that date, but I'm just skipping to the next step. So we get to those 2 dates, and Simon still
Doesn't have.
has it, so what are you gonna fire him? Can you fire him? You better warn him, and then if we warn them that if you don't, we're gonna fire you, we need to have a legal basis to do that, right? So maybe that's something we can ask Graham to think about, research for Thursday, because we are developing an evolving, we're debating whether we should have our policy evolve further than it currently is. Right now, it's not mandatory. We're debating whether we should and could make it mandatory.
Well, the only challenge I could see, I mean, since no government has done it yet, right, and, so the employees usually have all rights and privileges of other government employees, what would be the justification for all the utilities to have it? I would argue that GMH should probably have that policy long before we would do the utility, but, I mean, that would be the challenge for.
And I think the big one is, can we do it at all? I mean, that's what you can tell us Thursday, from your research.
Just the CCU, can the CCU mandate it?
Or
But
whether
are they
CCU
gonna-
or managing it, the point is, what happens to Simon on deadline day that doesn't get shot? Do we have the power to do what? And then if we do, would we adopt that as a policy? And Graham can let us know Thursday, just what, is that doable, right? Because I think that's part of your challenge, right, Miguel,
You got no meat, you got no.
we've got 99%, 95% of both companies.
80%.
But the question is, what happens to that recalcitrant one, two, three?
I don't know that I want a hammer.
Exactly, because it puts all of us in
Yeah,
that position.
I don't, I mean, honestly, guys, you don't want the hammer until it's you. Or you're at the hospital. I mean, it hit home for me when they were describing how a doctor has to come out to your family member, I'm sorry, Miguel, it's COVID, and say goodbye now. And you can never see him again. Because you're not allowed in. That part of COVID has not gone away. A COVID hospitalization means you're lonely, you're alone.
But does
The
that
only
mean you
person
can
you can-
fire Simon for not getting a shot?
I'm
That's
just
the headache.
saying, we deal with that when there's a COVID patient in our hospital that's not vaccinated, and you just gotta sit there and you go, oh my God, I mean, look at the harm you're putting all of us in.
But you treat him.
We don't have a choice. I mean, I wish we had that choice. Hey, goodbye, you're done, there you go.
So I'm with you, the question is, Graham
Can we
guide
do
us.
it?
Do we have such a choice,
Right.
when it comes to our employees?
As the
Commissioner Martinez.
I just wanted to find out, do we furnish everybody with a mask, or is it something that we do supply them with a mask?
We do, if they don't bring one in, the guard at the second floor
Yeah.
issues you a mask if one breaks or whatever, so we,
So in other words, within the compound here, everybody wear a mask and they move
But
around.
we don't provide it as a policy per se. We'll cover your butt if you forget it, and the guard will give it to you. But we haven't adopted a policy that says
We
GPA,
provide it.
GWA will now pay for all the
Provide.
masks worn by GPA,
Okay.
GWA employees. We
But I
haven't-
mean, you're required to wear a mask when you come into this.
Right, but we don't pay for it.
Yeah, okay.
So far.
Okay, and so when they do go out to do their work, are they required also when they get into the vehicles and they go out and they see customers, they have
Yes.
to wear a mask?
Yes.
Yes.
So that's a second one, do they carry their own sanitizing? Because that's also part of the
So
protocol.
throughout the pandemic, we've been supplying PPE and cleaning supplies and sanitizing equipment to our employees for them to use in the official vehicles.
Now, whether they use it or not, but all we can do is supply it, right? Yeah, that's all you
Yeah,
can do.
and in the offices as well, not just the vehicles.
So meeting up with customers and everything, do you know if any of them has ever been challenged? You know, I mean, if I was to come in there now, can I ask the employee down there, were you vaccinated? I mean,
As
I'm
a customer,
now.
I'm sure you could ask the question, but they wouldn't have any obligation to disclose it to you.
Because it's not in
It's their personal medical history.
And you wouldn't know if they were telling the truth or not.
And you would know.
That's-
But I
what I
think
was getting
one,
at.
one of the other things that I'd like to stress, Graham, what you need to look at is, if we can't mandate the vaccinations, what other things can we mandate? In other words, we mandate that you wear a mask all the time. We mandate that you wear a face shield. It's important to know if we can do that. Okay?
I mean, here's the other, I mean, so the governor releases us tomorrow in some form or manner. I just came from the break room. Are we changing the rules in the break room?
Those are good questions.
That's a good question.
Those are all good
If there are changes, if there, for when there have been changes, I think we've conferred with GPA on what changes would result in the policies for our facilities. So they consider what the governor has done, but I can't say that they've always followed them. For example, even with CDC guidance, you know, if you're vaccinated, and you're with vaccinated individuals, even if you're indoors, if everyone in the room has been vaccinated, they're saying masks are not required, but for the most part, that's still a requirement here, even if everybody in the room is vaccinated. So I don't think there's been any recent changes in our policies at GPWA facilities.
Is it a general knowledge between GWA and GPA that we have not reached the 80% mark? No, we've never told our employees? We're close, but we're not there, right? That's what we can say.
I think we've been keeping our employees informed of that.
You know,
Oh, are we not at 80% of our employees yet?
We're at 78%.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
We're very close, 78 point something. You know, this is one of those things. I'll tell you, the flip side of this is, anybody who wants to travel, don't have your shots, you're gonna have a hard problem going anywhere. And, you know, the federal government has mandated certain things, like in an airport, you wear a mask. That's all there is to it. You know, you can't get out. So, anyway, just, Graham, is something that you need to look at. Not just, what can we mandate in terms of you have to get a shot, but if we don't mandate you getting a shot, then what else can we mandate? Can we say you must wear a mask all the time, or, okay? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
There's 6 people teleworking. There's 7, what?
Yeah, there's 6 people teleworking as of July 14th.
Reason what?
We
asked everybody to come back to work.
we did, but we have a few people who have medical issues that are remaining working at home.
Okay.
Moving on to the operations update for production in May of 2021. we averaged 39 MGD from all sources, with a total of 1.208 million kgals in total production for the month. Our production wells, we had 93 active, 14 down, in addition to the 8 that are down hard and out of commission, the 2 secured for PFAS, and then 3 wells on standby. For June, that number, the active wells increased to 95 from 93, but 2 wells were taken off of standby, and the number of wells needing repair were still at 14. So we're in a bit of a hard place with the number of production wells that we have down needing repair, and crews are working as fast as they can to get those back up and running and increase the number of wells we have on standby. June production numbers, I will point out that on the June page, the graphic, the bar chart is incorrect. That for May's number is 1.182. It's actually 1.208. We will fix that for the final version that gets posted. But for June's production, we had 38.4 MGD average from all sources, with a total production for the month of 1.153 million kgals.
Scott, what's the difference between ground motor, pump failure, and out of commission?
Out of commission are the ones that are down hard, where it's going to require us to a construction project essentially to bring them.
As opposed to just going out and pump.
Yeah. So the ones that are down with a grounded motor or pump failure, we can pull it out, replace it, and put it back in and get it back into service.
Okay.
Moving on to Tumon Maui well production, just to give you an indication for May, production was around 1 MGD, with one day that we did take Tumon Maui down in order to bring down reservoir levels at the airport reservoir, so we could make some repairs on the exterior of the tank. So we needed to deplete, so we stopped production for that one day, and it allows us to do that. For June, we averaged right around 1 MGD for the month. On the distribution system summary for May, all of our booster pump stations were operating at 96.4% operability, maintaining that level for the past several months, so that's where we want to be. June, same thing, 96.4%, so not much change there in terms of the operability of our pump stations. On the distribution tank levels for May, we hovered, both north and south, we hovered between 40% and 50% of capacity throughout the month, with a dip in the north occurring around the 3rd to 4th week of May, and that's a result of some of the issues that we've been having with production wells up north. And then for June, that continued. The first week of June, we had several wells go down, so we were down to 30% reservoir capacity in the north, while we remained fairly constant in the south, around 45%. We did climb back up at the end of June, back up to 45%, and we're working to bring those numbers up in July. On wastewater collections, for the month of May, pump station operability was at 91.8%, up slightly from previous months. And we did it for CCTV and sewer cleaning. We were at 4.46 miles, just a bit shy of our 5-mile target for the month. June, we saw a decline in pump station operability, with a few pumps losing motors that need to be rewound or replaced at 89.5% operability, so we need to get that number back up. We did exceed cleaning production 5.2 miles, so we were slightly above the 5-mile target for June. Wastewater treatment for May, we had average daily flows across all plants of 9.99 MGD, and we generated 1.2 million pounds of sludge, and with a disposal cost of $113,000. For June, just a slight uptick, total of 10 MGD average for the month, with 971 pounds of sludge, 971,000 pounds of sludge generated for the month, at a disposal cost of $87,000. So our northern plant, the flows have been fairly consistent regardless of the rains, which is an indication that the work that we did on the northern sewer interceptor really has made a difference in terms of I&I. We have not seen that same type of stability in the other plants. We still have some I&I issues that we need to correct down south and in the central portions, and that'll be
I was
part of-
going to say, is that why, again, the Hagana treatment plant exceeds the northern in terms of the average daily flows? By a little amount, you know, I
Well,
mean,
that's a combination of the
I&I
capacity,
and
right?
capacity?
But there is a little more I&I, but it's more pronounced. If you look at the graphic, you can see in the typically rainier months, the agate plant, the gray portion of that stack bar chart, you can see where that goes up
Gets
and then
bigger.
comes down, and that's, you know, the flow loading to the plants from normal residential and commercial use is fairly consistent. It's what we're seeing in those fluctuations has to do with the amount of rain that we've seen during
And
that
the
month.
infiltration of
Yeah.
rainwater, stormwater.
Northern has stayed fairly constant. Agana has gone up and down a little bit, but it's more pronounced in Agate Santa
Okay,
Rita,
so-
and that's a
But
reflection
at least the
of-
plant in Haggis Santa Rita is designed to
It is
accommodate.
designed to accommodate, and we've not had
those-
any issues. We do
with the
have that
operation.
reserve capacity and the equalization tank, so
Yeah.
we're not seeing the same type of problems we saw before.
Yeah,
at
we're not
the old
polluting
plant.
the ocean anymore.
Right.
Good.
But we still eventually want to clean up the I&I down.
Well,
Right.
yeah.
We're seeing progress up north, yeah?
Right, the collection system does, that work is included in the 5-year CIP. It is part of what we plan to do under the consent decree as well, so
Yeah, okay,
Get that gray, shrink that gray to the small bars. we can.
consistently, yes.
yes,
Okay.
okay,
Cool. Thanks.
good. We're making progress,
on the-
consistent progress.
On the asset management side, for June, the cumulative distribution of work orders for corrective maintenance versus preventive maintenance, 65% preventive and 35% corrective. The completion rates for corrective maintenance are at 87%, and for preventive maintenance at 73%. In terms of the ratio for leak repairs versus equipment repairs for the corrective maintenance side, of all of our corrective maintenance work orders, 54% are for leak repairs and 46% are for equipment. And on the completion, 98% of the leak repair corrective maintenance work orders are completed. And on the equipment side, 87% of those work orders are completed. Moving on to the One Guam update. For Tumon Maui Well, we did have a quarterly inspection on June 23rd. No major issues, and there were some minor ones that will be corrected in the coming weeks. We did request the complete inspection report from the Navy, and that is forthcoming. We also did receive word that the license renewal for Tumon Maui was approved. We're waiting for those formal documents. In that request, we did, in our request for the renewal, we did ask for an increase in the allowable pumping rates
Yes,
for the plant up to the permitted levels. The license levels and the permitted levels are not the same. That request is being considered, but we didn't want to hold up the renewal, so if
Okay.
they do approve that at a later date, we'll have the license amended.
how long has been have the renewals been in the past? Is it a yearly thing, or is?
It has been yearly. I think we are moving towards a 5-year increments, but I don't think we are.
Essentially, we're gonna get a lease for
Okay, but this next renewal that we're gonna get, is it another annual renewal, or would it be? It's gonna be 5? Great, great.
this
It-
one, but this particular one might be short if they're going to approve.
The
a
lease.
longer license.
Yeah. No, that's great. No, my point is we're building, this is called proof of concept. We're proving we can do the job. And that's an important thing for us to do with our One Guam approach with the military.
I'd like to think, sir, that it's proven concept now.
Okay, it's a proven concept. I'm with you. Okay,
On the AG1 intertie with Anderson, the AG1 the license again was approved. Similar situation. we did request an increase in the pumping rate, and that was also, that's being considered, but we have not received approval on that. There was a request for us to work out an easement for the water line that runs from the well, which is on Anderson property, to our distribution system, which is on Route 9. So we're working through that right now. We have a potential relocation issue that might need to be incorporated with that, and our engineering group is working with DOD's facility folks to try and figure that part out. And there's also been a request to provide Anderson with some water from our distribution system up by Northwest Field, so we're doing some modeling to figure out if that can be done. With regards to the OEA projects, the NGLA observation wells, as you know, we've issued the notice to proceed after we received authorization from you on that contract. Permits, I believe, are in progress right now by the contractor, and we are moving forward with the construction of the new wells. The rehabilitation project, those wells are almost completed. I think we have just a few left to complete. With regard to the OEA grant requirement for long-term sustainment of those assets that we've used grant money to construct, we will be presenting to the board a presentation with WERI and USGS on the One Guam Water Resource Information Program. That is an item we have on the agenda under issues for discussion. We are going to ask the chair if it would be possible to recess this work session until next week Thursday, so that we can, it's going to be at least an hour-long presentation.
And we're going to do it in the morning, right?
And we're going to do it in the morning, if
Okay,
that's
good.
acceptable to the board. And so we've currently got that.
I'll remember to do that at the end of the meeting. We'll remember to make sure.
On the rehab, there is one issue with one of the wells with regard to property ownership. Currently, it's under the Navy. They did issue us a license to use the property in order to do this construction project. So we are working out. We've signed that license and returned it back to DOD, to the real estate office. But the long-term goal is for the property to be transferred to GWA, and we're working on that. There has been, as I previously reported, a request for water to serve Camp Blas, and we're anticipating that will be sometime in late September. So their contractor will follow the appropriate application process for water service, and we anticipate that the connection will be near the Potts Junction area.
Okay. Do you have a time frame, Miguel, on when Camp Blas actually starts to impact your water and your sewer?
Well, it should be now.
They're beginning to?
As part of our original license for Tumal Maui, we were required to provide a permanent connection there.
No, I get that.
And that has already been done. I think they are using a temporary connection for construction purposes. But in terms of when they will, the facilities will go live and they will use that permanent connection, I don't think we've been given a hard date on that. So,
Okay.
but it's dependent on the completion of their construction.
Yes,
at least of some
I
of
get
their
that. I'm just saying that, at some point, there's going to be a demand on your water system for that camp. And that's still many years away, maybe? Or a couple of years away?
So I would say that their full system, or their full development of the facility, is 2 or 3 years away.
Okay. But they're beginning to impact.
What they've asked for now is a connection for a project on the base, and not necessarily for that permanent system.
Okay.
If you recall, they were supposed to construct their own wells and their own
Yeah.
water system.
Yeah.
So this, we're providing kind of a temporary service for this project, but we already have a permanent connection for what their demand was supposed to have been from us as part of the Tuman Maui well license agreement.
Sure.
And when they apply for permanent service for that, I would anticipate that to be within the next year or so.
Okay, that's all. Thank you. Next.
Just to wrap up the One Guam, additional interoperability projects are being discussed as part of the strategy and framework. There's a Route 16 intertie to connect our water systems there, and there will be a MOU developed similar to what was developed for Santa Rosa regarding that interconnection. So we're working through that. There are a couple of property transfers still pending. We don't have any update on the Navy sewer infrastructure along Murray Road that will be transferred to GWA. And we have heard that they're looking to transfer the ASORP tunnel into Mooning, but the governor hasn't signed off on that yet. But from what we understand, there are some additional requirements that Guam EPA is imposing which have not been addressed as of yet. One other issue that came up with One Guam is we do have a sewer line that serves a large portion of the GWA collection system that runs along Marine Drive and comes off of the right-of-way and onto property that was formerly belonging to the government of Guam but has since been returned to Department of Defense. And so now that sewer line is on DOD property without an appropriate easement. So we've requested, or we are in the process of requesting that. I think I made final comments to the letter that will be issued to DOD hopefully within the week.
Okay.
Moving on to the court order, no real change here, 98.9% complete. That number won't move until we finish some tank projects, which we're still working on. However, we do have overflow information, SSO information to report. We did have a couple in May, no SSOs in June, which is a nice thing to hear. But we did have one in July after some rain down in Melissa with a pump station that went down. So we're corrected that and looking at how we can prevent that from happening in the future. But just a couple of SSOs to report.
Okay.
And those have all been sent up to US EPA.
Sure.
On our land acquisition efforts to support some of our CIPs, we did have a little bit of movement for the airport. There was that sliver of property that is needed to connect the existing water line to our new tank location. There was a judge appointed, I guess, to complete that estate.
To approve the
probate case.
sale of the
So
estate.
we are still waiting for approval from the court
Sure.
of the sale. And then there's been some action on some of the property issues associated with Aspen Springs. We've been working with the Park Service. We have been working to complete biological survey requirements and archaeological requirements. These are part of the NEPA process that Park Service needs to complete before it can work out a lease agreement with us. So the consultants have been working on that, and several submissions have been made, and we're waiting for that to take its final course, and so we can move forward with a lease agreement.
That's a very good source of water, that Aspen Springs. Yeah. Hopefully it moves soon. Okay.
Okay, and the next couple of slides I'll let Chris go through.
Sure.
I'll just take this time to kind of give you an update on all of the activity around the collections and disconnection campaign
Sure.
from the month of June. So we started the campaign of disconnecting delinquent customers on June 2nd, 2021. The target accounts were those that were in arrears 60 days or more. They weren't government accounts. They did not have an active payment plan. They did not have an active open dispute, and they weren't pre-qualified by the DOA Emergency Renter Assistance Program. So anyone that was not in any of those buckets was put on the list for termination. So prior to going out and doing the terminating, we have to send out a 10-day notice to all the customers. In the month of June, we sent out roughly 2,300 notices. And during soft launch on our customer service online portal. So now our customers can just go online and enter into payment plans as well as do other things. So now our customers can actually sign up for water directly online and don't have to come into any of our
Really?
offices to do that.
Wow.
So basically, any activity that you can need to do with customer service is available on our portal. So that has been also amended to. There was village outreach done at the mayor's locations, north, central, south. They weren't very successful. There was no activity on those. So what were the results? So the results were phenomenal from my perspective. We were able to decrease that 60-day plus arrears by about 35% for customer, for residential and commercial accounts. The number of accounts that were disconnected was about 660 thereabouts. Of those, 415 were restored. So there was still, roughly 230 odd customers that have not come in and done a payment plan and made any payments. So what we do when that happens is we send our crews out about a week to 2 weeks later just to double check and make sure that there's no reconnection done by the customers and that it's still disconnected. And so we have been doing that, and we haven't found any cases where customers have illegally after being disconnected.
And Chris, you were saying we had, so how many got
Commissioner Sanchez.
disconnected, about 600?
About 660.
Because as I read this, and just help me if I'm doing it right, we were at a high in the low 4,000s, and then in the last few months with all the outreach that you described, we knocked it down to under 2,000, but we still have, in terms of accounts, over 60 days. And so that's, to me, that's a nice improvement. But of that 1,800 or whatever that number is, we still have around did I hear that right, 600 that we actually disconnected and they remain disconnected?
No, there's only, of the 660 that were disconnected, there's only about 230 that remain.
That remain, and
So, but we're still in the process, so, we can only do so many, so it's just a continuous process for us, so every week we
Reaching out.
the list as much as we can of all those people, of the 2,000 that are still delinquent.
but we're down to a couple of hundred that actually, as far as we know, are not receiving water from us because they've been
Of those in the list.
right, and they've been disconnected. And I'm just curious, how are they survived without water? But that's good. But you go back and double
Reach
check.
out to them.
I don't know. It's like anything else. It's like masks and getting shots. I mean, we can tell people, we can encourage, cajole, show them programs. It shows that the outreach did produce results, but out of some 40,000 customers, you still got a couple hundred that currently do not have water because they have made no arrangements with GWA. Right? And that's the unfortunate situation for some of our customers. They're not getting water now. Okay.
And so of the total number of accounts that we decreased from that 60 plus arrears, it's been about 30%. So as you mentioned, we went from about 3,000 residential customers down to 2,000 within the month. And on the commercial side, we went from about 150 delinquent accounts down to about 100. And so again, I want to thank all of the commissioners for allowing us to move forward with that. It's been very successful, and we're going to keep that.
I'd just like to make an observation. There are some people out there who are just not going to be able to afford anything. I mean, I was reading the newspaper today. There's some people that at some point they just don't, and this is nothing new. I mean, that's where food stamps came from. Everybody has to eat, but there are some people who just can't afford it. So until somebody steps in, and we can't do it because we represent all the ratepayers. And it's very hard for us to take from one ratepayer to give to another ratepayer. If you take tax dollars, that's a whole different matter. So food stamps are tax dollars. And, at some point, the government, state, local, federal has to do something.
Well, you're highlighting a point which was also made in our master plan, that anticipating all the CIPs that are required over the 20 years, that there will be an increase in rates, and there will be a portion of the population that is most financially vulnerable,
Yeah.
who need some sort of assistance, and that was the whole goal of the customer
Affordability.
affordability program,
Yeah.
which has been, you know, at least the proposal of which has been approved by the board and put forth
Yeah.
to the PUC.
I think, Miguel, what I'm trying to get at is we're going to try our very best, but at some point, you're going to have, you know, the 200 people who are just out of water. I mean, Commissioner Sanchez is right. There's 200 accounts. You don't know how many are families or single people, but there's a group of people out there that, for some reason, are just not able to come in and make a payment, do a payment plan, do anything. They're just so down in the hole. And, you know,
Even
we
100 commercial accounts, Mr. Chair.
And 100 commercial
There's
accounts.
some people that just,
Yeah, you know, some businesses that are just, you know, they're bankrupt, they don't know it yet, but they're bankrupt. Yeah, and they just haven't gotten the memo, but, you know, and it's a hard life out there, and it's like everything else. Somebody needs to step in, it can't be us. Anyway, thank you.
We continue to move forward with the program.
You're making phenomenal progress, though. Listen,
all you can do.
the one thing I want to applaud both GPA and GWA is the fact that there's an outreach. We're working with them. We're bending over backwards to establish payment plans. We're trying to accommodate everybody we can. And I don't think people, you know, really understand the lengths to which the management and staff of both utilities go through. I think you're to be commended, really. Because you could just say, hey, it's not our problem. But, you know, we are very sensitive. But even as sensitive as we want to be, there's a point you just can't do anything. I mean, unless you want to pay their bill for them. Okay. I'm sorry, keep going.
That's all for the management
Okay.
report, but the
Now
financials.
for the fun part, the money. Yeah, okay, Tully.
Okay, so, this is a snapshot of our key financial indicators. Although we haven't met the target of 1.4, we're still above the 1.25 required by our indenture. So, in May, we were at 1.29, and we're at 1.34. We have improved our, days of cash on hand, going from 274 days in May to 306 days in June.
Wow.
The next page is just a snapshot of our revenues against our expenditures and our operating income. And then the next slide is kind of a picture of our expenses. We did reduce by 6%, from, year-to-date June, to, 2021 versus 2020. And then the next slide, I'm going to show a picture of where we are at with regard to, our customer classes and what they're, contributing to,
Your revenue.
to our revenues. And you can see that, you know, our, residential class, is contributing more, and our, hotel class is about, went down to, 9 million versus, 16.
Okay.
The next slide is just a picture of our, consumption. This is both, water demand and wastewater. So again, you see our hotels, contributing a little less, to our demand. The next slide is just a picture of, the blue is our water demand, the red is our wastewater, and then the green, line is our revenues. And then the next page just breaks it down between water and wastewater.
Okay.
And then this is the next, picture is a snapshot of our, revenues versus collections.
Okay.
So again, in the month of June, we collected over, 100% of our revenues.
Of your June revenues. Right, that's how you read that. It's good though, it's good.
Good.
And then, this last slide just shows, our aging, orange line is our customers are current, the line below it is our 120 days of over, and then the lines on the bottom are all in betweens. So the first, slide, is everyone, and then the second slide, takes out the inactive accounts. And that's it in a nutshell.
Okay. Anything else?
Nothing
Maybe one
substantive, but I did want to just point out one other initiative in terms of public outreach that we've been doing. You know, we've been having piloting a program for fog collection. Heidi's been very engaged with the mayor's office, and also on her own has been monitoring the collection site that we have at Upper Tumon. And the program has been successful. We've been collecting residential fog that is fats, oils, and grease for proper disposal through a vendor, as opposed to it being put into the sewer system. So we're trying to correlate how effective the program has been in terms of the villages that we're collecting in and the number of SSOs that we've seen. And for the last 2 months, you've seen that our SSO numbers are fairly low. So it's an indication to me that that particular program is working, and I'd like to just commend Heidi for her persistence and efforts in putting that out there with the public and doing the outreach for us. I think it's engendered a positive result for us, and that's something I wanted to let you know about.
I'd also like to commend GWA and whoever put out the annual water report.
Maybe one of those.
Huh?
No,
What?
I've been bugging Miguel. I have a customer always asking me for that annual water report.
It came with their water bill.
I know, but that was 3 months ago. and
No,
neither
no,
the
no, just
customer-
last, just this month.
We have several outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Neither the customer nor me had it.
Yeah, but, no. Okay. No, what I wanted to do,
On the website.
okay, what I wanted to do was commend you folks, because in the past, we just put that on the customer service, and people were supposed to take it. It got mailed out to us.
Yeah, we
as-
did that for-
As we mailed it out, but this time it got mailed out with our bill, and I saw it, and I read through it, and it's good. Listen, we keep our ratepayers, I'm commending you because we keep our ratepayers very informed. Now, if they don't want to be very informed, they have the right not to be. But they can't fault you good folks at GWA for not informing them. You're informing them. They choose not to, you know, hey, that's called freedom of life. But I wanted to commend you folks
Thank you
for doing that.
Just another thing to point out on that, we did, the format was generally acceptable, you know, it was legible, and all the same information is there. But
Yeah.
I think we put that a lot of the same,
On the postage, yeah, about $7,000.
$7,000.
Yeah, by putting it with the,
By
yeah,
doing
very
it
good.
this way, so.
Very good. That's great.
Thank
That's
you.
what I'm commending you for. Thank you very much. Good job. If there's nothing else, okay, what we want to do is recess this meeting to next week, Thursday. What's the date?
29.
The 29th at 9 a.m.
For
for the presentation
Water
of
resource information.
water
program
resource
presentation.
information, okay, which I think is very important, and 9 o'clock in the AM. Can I have the motion to recess the meeting till 9 a.m.?
Second, Mr. Chair.
Second? Any further discussion? No? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimous. Okay,
I'm sorry, what time, when's it?
9 a.m., 9 a.m., the 29th, next Thursday, okay? This
And that's
meeting
the
is
briefing-
recessed.
That's the briefing Miguel was talking about?